That's Bree, and she's telling us how she kicked her bridesmaid out of her wedding. Now they've been friends for quite some time. They actually met about 7 years ago, and the friend's name is actually Chu, but we later find out her name is Chloe, and we're actually going to go by Chloe. So back in the late 2010s, Chloe and Bri were actually living together. It was Bri's place. Chloe is actually from a very wealthy family in the UK. So even though Bri allowed it, she did find it weird that she was living in her place rent-free, utilities-free. So while Chloe and Brianna were living together, Chloe was a very heavy smoker to the point that one day she ran to the kitchen and was coughing up blood. And so obviously Brianna was very concerned. And when she asked her about it, Chloe's like, "Oh, this must be from the chemotherapy that I'm doing." And so Bri's like, "Chemo, okay." She's like, "Yeah, I have breast cancer, but when I go back to the UK, I'm going to get it all sorted out." Brianna's very confused because she's like, "We go clubbing all the time. We go and we drink and we smoke. I'm so confused how you're going through chemo right now and you also apparently have breast cancer." And so in January of 2025, Chloe ends up sitting down Brianna. She was clearly distraught. She was crying and she tells Brianna, "Oh my God, I have to tell you I have breast cancer." And Brianna's looking at her like, "Oh my God, yeah, like, playing along because Brianna's looking at her like, "You already told me that." Right. And so Chloe goes on to be like, yeah, I have breast cancer," as if it's new information to Brianna. Same thing as before. Chloe's like, "Yeah, I just need to go back to the UK and I just need to get more treatment." Brianna's like, "I totally support you. No problem at all." Come to find out, Chloe actually got kicked out of her school because of not paying tuition. Brianna was the one that actually helped her land another job in Japan. All Chloe kept saying is like, "How could they charge me? My mother just passed away." It was true. Last year, her mother did pass away. And Brianna is like, "I fear this is a business." And so because Chloe got kicked out of the school, her student visa was going to expire in Japan. So she quickly needed to go find a job so that she'd be able to stay. That's what Brianna helped her do. When you work for a school in Japan, apparently you have to get a health examination. When Chloe went to go get her examination, she ended up posting her x-rays on Instagram, her own volition, and the x-rays were clear. Now Brianna understands that you have to get mammograms and MRIs to be able to see if you have breast cancer, but she was just so confused how the x-ray was just completely clear for her chest. So it's Brianna, her husband, a few other friends, they all ended up deciding to do an intervention for Chloe. Now they had several reasons to do the intervention, but the main one actually was financial reasons. And Brianna's husband was involved because he also had lent money to Chloe and never got it back. But at the core of the intervention they wanted to address, does Chloe have cancer? And so when they started, they're all in a circle and she's going around the bush, not really giving them a straightforward answer. So Brianna's husband straightforward is like, "Hey, do you have cancer?" And this is when she starts backtracking. Chloe now claims that she actually had benign tumors. And that when she goes back to the UK, she's gonna get it all sorted out. Mind you, one of the people in the interventions is Chloe's best friend, right? And so the best friend's looking at her like, "You never told me that." And Chloe's like, "Yes, I did." And they start getting into a heated back and forth about whether or not Chloe disclosed the benign tumor situation. Brianna just thought it was so weird that, Chloe shares every aspect of her life, personal or not. But when it came to this one thing, she was being very evasive and vague. So like I said, the other reason that they held the intervention was because of financial reasons. Now, Chloe was always broke. Apparently, she never had money. She was always borrowing money. But the worst part about it all was that she never paid people back. It got so bad at a point that Brianna even stopped talking to Chloe for about a year. Brianna actually just recently found out that Chloe was going around and telling people that she was a bad friend, and Brianna was like, "I'm not a bad friend. I was setting a boundary. I was just tired of loaning money to somebody that wasn't going to pay me back." So when they became friends again, Brianna set a hard boundary. "I'm not letting you borrow any money." And at first, Chloe respected it, but sooner or later, she started asking to borrow money again. And just like every other time, Brianna had to go chasing down Chloe to get her money back. Now her husband had loaned money to Chloe and she told him, "I'm going to give this money back in 1 week." It took her over 2 months to pay back Brianna's husband. So recently, Brianna had a friend named Mia staying with her from July to August. And on the last night that Mia was out there, they decided to go out to a karaoke bar. And so they ended up inviting everybody. And all of a sudden, Chloe ends up calling Brianna and being like, "Hey, girl, I left my wallet at work. I work at a school, so I'm not going to have access to the school until Monday. Can I borrow money? X amount of money." Brianna's like, yeah, sure, I got you. No problem. So they pull up to the karaoke night. They have a great night. As they're getting ready to go and leave, Mia and Brianna are getting into the car. Chloe looks at Brianna and she's like, oh, how much cash do you have left? And basically Brianna's like, I have like 50 American dollars, however much that translates to yen. Chloe's just staring at her. And Brianna's like, no, bro, I already let you borrow money today. I'm gone. She hops into the taxi and she leaves, so now Mia has left. The next day, Brianna had plans with other friends, right? So she goes to meet up with them. All of a sudden, Chloe shows up and she obviously had to take a train there. She's buying her food. She's buying her drinks. And Brianna's just so confused. I thought she forgot her wallet. I thought she didn't have any money. How are you out and about right now? And so this just spoke to the same pattern that whenever she didn't want to pay for something, she would just lie and tell people, oh, I forgot my wallet. This wasn't the first time that she did something like that. So Monday rolls around and Brianna's like, hey, Chloe, where's my money? Chloe doesn't answer. She hits her up again on Tuesday. She's like, where's my money? And so then Chloe's like, oh, can you meet me at this random bar at 9 p.m.? I'll give you the money then. And Brianna's like, no, I'm going to be in bed at that time. And also, why would I pay money to travel 30 minutes away to get my money? No, I'm not gonna do that. Brianna is like the bar that she's at is this bar that her 57-year-old boyfriend bartends at. Apparently, she has like a $700 tab at that bar. And the boyfriend's just letting her take advantage of him, and so Brianna's like, I'm not going to meet you there. But they had plans to go to a Kate Renata concert that Friday, and so Chloe's like, I'll give it to you on that day. Friday rolls around, and Brianna starts talking about, oh, I'm really not feeling well. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. And Brianna's just like, even when your mom passed away, you were still out drinking and smoking and having a blast, so. I don't understand what you're talking about right now. What Brianna understood was that they all bought $80 tickets to go to Quetranada, and that was the plan for the night. Come to find out, Chloe tells her like, oh, actually, I had a friend from the bar that was supposed to get me in for free and they're not going anymore, so I'm not going anymore. Brianna's like, what? They're at the concert now and Chloe's best friend's boyfriend walks up and he's like, hey, where's Chloe? You guys are like always together. And when Brianna checked her locations, that girl was at the same bar that her boyfriend bartends at. And so she's like, obviously this girl's not paying me back and not showing up to the concert either. When Brianna told the best friend's boyfriend that, he's like, what? I DJ at this place and I can't even get in for free. What is she talking about? So again, just highlighting how Chloe, she just comes up with these tall tales out of nowhere. So moving forward, Brianna tells us how. Apparently, Chloe was supposed to have this large inheritance from her mother, like she was supposed to become an instant millionaire. So Chloe tells her like, hey, I'm going to the UK to handle everything. She comes back, she's like, everything is handled. I will have to go back to the UK eventually and handle some of my mom's businesses. She was telling everybody that her mom had just like all these businesses, right? So Brianna's like, let me look into that now, right? They have fell out at this point. So she goes on the internet. Come to find out Chloe's mom did in fact have several businesses. But they all were sold and liquidated and left the mother in debt well before the mother was even dead. There's no money. There's actually mountains and mountains of debt. Apparently, the mother actually went broke trying to support Chloe's lifestyle in Japan. When she was looking through the paperwork, she ended up seeing another name named Barbara, and she looks up that name. She's like, who's this person? They were listed as like a business investor partner. The minute Brianna puts this woman's name into the internet, a bunch of articles pop up about her being into investment fraud. And so at this point, Brianna's jaw is on the ground. Brianna also ended up finding out that Chloe is actually being sued in the UK because of her mother's debt. But that didn't make sense to Brianna, because she was just like, why would your mother's debts transfer over to you unless they got like a co-loan together? So when she looked into the debt, she ended up finding out that it was also because Chloe never paid for the funeral we said never paid for her tuition. A friend of Chloe's actually gave her the money that she needed to pay for her tuition so she wouldn't be expelled. And she didn't use the money for that, which is wild to Bri because she worked so hard to get a meeting with Chloe, with her dean, so that she can discuss and see if there's any possibilities for Chloe to stay in the school. And the dean pretty much said there's only one solution. The tuition has to be paid. So at this point, Brown is realizing there's no money. There hasn't been money coming in for years. She's getting upset that Chloe is staying with another friend and using her late mother's credit cards to order Uber Eats. And at the same time, Chloe's still borrowing money. Even though Brianna helped her getting a full-time job as a teacher, Brianna's like, granted, teachers don't make the most in Japan. However, it was money. Chloe actually never opened a Japanese bank account in that country. And so she was using a younger girl's account to have her work checks deposited. So Brianna ends up hitting up that friend and being like, hey, I know this is weird, but like how much are Chloe's checks that she's been getting deposited? She was supposed to get over like 200 yen. A month she was only making like 108 yen a month, which is like half of her salary. And when she was asked about it, she's like, oh, I barely make it to work, I call out. I'm hungover. I even showed up to work drunk before. And so Brianna's just like, I don't understand what's wrong with this girl. Mind you, before Brianna found out how much money the girl was making, she was telling her, oh, I'm making 300,000 yen. And everybody's looking at her like, no teacher gets paid that much. They knew she was lying, just not how much. It was also wild because it's like you're living rent-free. You don't pay utilities. You actually lost your place because you didn't pay your rent. And the utilities weren't even in your name. And then to make matters worse, Chloe was bringing strange men to that friend's house she was staying with, and the friend didn't even know. Brianna had to tell her like, did you know she's bringing men to your house? And that wasn't even the worst part. Brianna tells her Chloe has a stalker. She let the stalker into your house. I don't even understand that logic at all. I think this part was really hard for Brianna because she herself had odd 2 times trying to unalive herself. So when she got a message from Chloe, one of those like a year ago photos, like the memories that Instagram used to do. She's like, what about this picture? And Chloe's like, don't you remember? This was my suicide attempt. And Brianna's looking at her like, what? She's like, yeah, don't you remember when I didn't answer my phone and I turned off my locations and you and your husband came to my house to make sure I was okay? And Brianna's looking at her like, that wasn't a suicide attempt. And Chloe's like, yeah, but you had to make sure I was okay. And so Brianna at this point is just so confused. So she ends up going to another friend. She ends up going to another friend and being like, hey, did Brianna have a suicide attempt last year? And the friend's like, yeah, they said that you just like randomly showed up to her house and you helped her. And Brianna's like, what? You're lying. Brianna was shocked to find out that Chloe, who was claiming to be full Japanese, actually had a fully black father. And her whole heritage, she was like my family. They're all Vietnamese, da-da-da-da-da. And that her dad was like Malaysian from the Caribbean, however. And so he was like mixed. But come to find out the father was actually fully black. This was like shocking to Brianna because she believed her. You told me you were mixed. I believed you. I'm not going to sit here and question your genes, you know. Brianna's also realizing this kind of makes sense because when she met Chloe's sibling, they looked fully black. So then Brianna's like, oh my God, does Chloe's wife know? Because apparently when Chloe went back to the UK, she got married to a woman. And the friend is like, what wife? What marriage? Shana says the name of the wife and the childhood friend of Chloe's that she's talking to is like, who? That's my cousin. That's not Chloe's wife. They're just friends. And then she goes on to tell her like, Chu is not Chloe's name. Chu is her YouTube persona that she created. Chloe's her real name. And this made Brianna think about a time where she did introduce Chloe to another Vietnamese friend and was like, hey, this is my friend Chu. The Vietnamese friend looked at Bri and said, a Vietnamese Chu is a surname. It's a last name. It's not a first name. At the time, Brianna kind of just like waved it off because she was like, well, my friend told me that's her name. So now Brianna ends up finding out that that girl who Chloe introduced as her younger sister was actually just a friend. When Brianna was telling another friend in Japan about everything and being like, oh my God, yeah, that girl is not Chloe's sister. The friend is like, oh, what about her brother, Raffi? And Brianna's like, brother? No, she only has sisters. And the friend's like, no, she has a brother. She sends over Raffi's Instagram to Brianna. And so Brianna messages him and was like, duh, 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 duh. That guy responds back and he's like, yeah, I'm not her brother. I'm just a friend. All of these are kind of happening in real time. Like sometimes she's finding out things and coming on and giving like a 1-minute story and being like, you guys, I just found out that's not her real name. I just found out she's not fully Vietnamese. So at this point, Chloe has reached out to Brianna and been like, hey girl, can you please take down your TikToks? It's affecting my mental health. Like it's affecting my job, all of this. And Brianna made it really simple. She said, prove to me that you have cancer and I'll take them down. And so now Chloe's giving her the runaround like, oh, I can't access my, healthcare stuff in the UK. And so Brianna's like, what about your stuff in Japan? You went to a clinic and got a scan out here. And she's like, oh, I'm trying to get to them, but they're far. She's like, well, they're not that far. You can call them and go pick up the information that you need. And so then Chloe's like, oh, can I show you like a booking appointment confirmation? And Brianna's like, no, that just confirms you had an appointment. It doesn't have any details about it. She's like, what about a prescription bottle? Brianna's like, maybe I'll accept a prescription bottle. Chloe just kept bringing up the x-ray screenshot and being like, well, you posted my medical records, da-da-da-da. And Brianna's like, look, I'll take it down. Just prove that you have cancer. I'll give you a public apology. I'll give you a private apology. I'll do whatever you want, but just prove it to me. Brianna's like, look, I know. Being like, show me your medical records is kind of intense, but... She was my bridesmaid, she was my friend of 7 years. And she's lied to me damn near about every single thing in her life. I need proof. Brianna highlights how she is absolutely stressed out her wedding is in 3 weeks. She's planning everything now that Chloe's no longer in the wedding, another bridesmaid. Actually dropped out of the wedding for a completely unrelated issue. And she's just freaking out. She's like, I have so much to do, so much to book. And she thinks that I am like even slightly concerned with what she's talking about, like, leave me alone, go away. We all know the truth about you now. I just want to like not be so stressed out. She's like, I'm literally waking up crying and vomiting because I'm so stressed out. And when people were asking Brianna, like, why did you guys stay friends for so long? And you guys even had a break at one point. She said that Chloe was basically playing to Brianna's traumas and being like, look, we have the same traumas. We've both been sexually assaulted. Like we're both biracial living in Japan. Like, you're the only one that understands me. They even had very similar mental illness diagnoses, which we don't know if it's true or not. But those points made Chloe feel like, oh, girl, you're the only one that understands me, that truly gets me. And so that caused them to stay close because it was almost like, honestly, a trauma bonding. Right. And so now Brianna's over it. She just wants to focus on her wedding.
Been with my girl for 3 years and was legit saving for a ring and everything. Then her phone starts blowing up at 2 a.m. like every night. She's all it's just work stuff, but like, at 2 a.m., come on. I know everyone says don't go through your partner's phone, but whatever, I did it anyway, and holy crap, my life just exploded right there. Wasn't just one dude, 4 different guys. All these separate convos with pics I never want to see again, them planning hookups, and worst part, they were all joking about me. One was literally my best friend since we were kids, another was her boss, classic, our freaking neighbor from down the hall, and that gay friend she was always hanging out with who, surprise, surprise, wasn't actually gay. This had been going on for like 8 months, while I'm working double shifts to save for our future and stuff. When I finally confronted her, I thought she'd at least try to deny it or cry or something. Nope. She straight up laughed and was like, took you long enough to figure it out. Said I was too predictable and she was bored. My so-called best friend texted later saying it wasn't personal and these things happen. Like WTF, man. I just grabbed my stuff that night while she went out to clear her head, which probably meant hooking up with one of them, TBH. It's been like 2 months now. Moved to a different city, blocked all their asses, started therapy cause I was messed up. Then yesterday she calls from some random number crying about how she made a huge mistake. Turns out boss dude fired her after getting what he wanted, neighbor moved away, my ex-friend got busted by his girlfriend, and the gay friend ghosted her once he got bored. She had the nerve to ask if we could work things out. I just laughed and hung up. Some things you just can't fix, and finding out your girlfriend's been living a whole secret life with 4 other dudes. Yeah, that's definitely one of them.
3 weeks ago, I left for a work trip. My husband didn't want to come. I'll hang back, game a little, order pizza, he said. He's 41. I thought, fine, he's an adult, he'll be fine. He was not fine. Day 2, he decided he was going to become a grill master, even though we don't own a grill. He stacked 3 baking sheets on top of each other, poured lighter fluid over them, and set off the smoke alarm for 40 minutes. The oven still smells like gasoline. Then he got really into minimalist living after a TikTok binge and threw away half our dishes, claiming we only need 1 bowl each. Unfortunately, he chose the salad bowl and the dog's water dish. Everything else, gone. To feed himself, he bulk ordered 20 frozen burritos and survived on those exclusively. By week 2, he was eating them still partially frozen because it's basically a cold wrap. His justification: saves electricity. He stopped doing laundry entirely, just rotated between 2 pairs of basketball shorts. By the time I got back, they had fused into what I can only describe as denim-adjacent cardboard. The dog started growling every time he sat down. Last night, I walked in to find him shirtless, playing the recorder he ordered off Amazon because Mozart slapped. The living room smelled like burnt plastic and ranch dressing. This morning, I woke up to him mumbling in his sleep, I am the burrito. The dog has relocated to the bathtub and won't come out. So now I'm sitting in a cafe sipping coffee like it's communion wine, with a dog who looks like he's seen combat. The barista asked if I wanted almond milk. I just said no. My house is already nut-based chaos. 3 weeks ago, I left for a work trip. My husband didn't want to come. I'll hang back, game a little, order pizza, he said. He's 41. I thought, fine, he's an adult, he'll be fine. He was not fine. Day 2, he decided he was going to become a grill master, even though we don't own a grill. He stacked 3 baking sheets on top of each other, poured lighter fluid over them, and set off the smoke alarm for 40 minutes. The oven still smells like gasoline. Then he got really into minimalist living after a TikTok binge and threw away half our dishes, claiming we only need 1 bowl each. Unfortunately, he chose the salad bowl and the dog's water dish. Everything else, gone. To feed himself, he bulk ordered 20 frozen burritos and survived on those exclusively. By week 2, he was eating them still partially frozen because it's basically a cold wrap. His justification: saves electricity. He stopped doing laundry entirely, just rotated between 2 pairs of basketball shorts. By the time I got back, they had fused into what I can only describe as denim-adjacent cardboard. The dog started growling every time he sat down. Last night, I walked in to find him shirtless, playing the recorder he ordered off Amazon because Mozart slapped. The living room smelled like burnt plastic and ranch dressing. This morning, I woke up to him mumbling in his sleep, "I am the burrito." The dog has relocated to the bathtub and won't come out. So now I'm sitting in a cafe sipping coffee like it's communion wine, with a dog who looks like he's seen combat. The barista asked if I wanted almond milk. I just said no. My house is already nut-based chaos. Admitted in my vows, actually, in front of all of our guests. For me, it was love at first sight for my now husband. Not so much for him. I was his little sister's friend, with braces and constant teen girl giggling. He was the older, much hotter, couldn't care less older brother upstairs. I obviously had no shot. Later, we met again through mutual friends, now both older, no headgear. I was just as in love, he was still just as cute, and this time I actually had a chance. I wasn't going to blow it. I invited him to crash at my place after a friend's birthday party, and I had staged the place. I had casually left out a t-shirt of his favorite football team, just tossed on the back of a chair. Oops, how did that get there? I left a CD of his favorite band on my nightstand, because obviously that's what any casual fan does. I love them too, duh. I had his favorite beer in the fridge. Yes, I 100,000% drink this beer too. It doesn't taste like piss water to me at all. Was I a complete weirdo for doing this? Yes. Did it work perfectly? Also yes. It also made for perfect wedding vows. His sister, a bridesmaid, was only a little annoyed to find out I was using our hangouts as study sessions on her older brother. Just kidding. She thought it was hilarious, and knew all her friends thought he was cute, obviously. Back in August, I got laid off unexpectedly. No warning, no severance, just a "hey, we're restructuring" and a Zoom call that lasted 3 minutes. I panicked. Couldn't tell my family yet. Didn't want my friends or ex-coworkers to know, so I just pretended I was still working. Every day I'd log in, open my laptop, and sit there like I was busy. Told people I had meetings. Walked around with AirPods in like I was on calls. Applied to jobs nonstop in the background. Even posted on LinkedIn occasionally about exciting projects at work, just to keep the illusion going. Then something wild happened. A recruiter saw one of those fake posts, reached out, and asked if I was open to opportunities. I said yes. Got an interview. Lied through my teeth about the current job. Crushed the interviews. Got an offer, higher salary, better title, remote, actual work-life balance. It's been 5 months now, and I still haven't told most people I was ever unemployed. Honestly, don't think I ever will. I used to feel guilty for faking it, but now I just feel relieved. The system's built on BS anyway. I just played along until it worked. You know how some couples bond by working out together, or meal prepping, or doing morning walks? My husband and I bond by playing daily games of what new food item will betray his digestive system today. This week's installment began when my husband, 40M, decided he wanted to clean up his gut. Now, this is the same man who once deep-fried a Pop-Tart because he wanted to experiment. The same man who thought taking a fiber supplement and eating 20 chicken wings was balance. So when he suddenly started Googling things like gut health and low FODMAP recipes, I got nervous, real nervous. For 3 days straight, He only ate boiled veggies, brown rice, and something that vaguely resembled tofu but had the texture of a wet Band-Aid. Then he added a chia smoothie. Because why not throw a gallon of jelly seeds into a system already on strike? Fast forward to night 3. We're in bed. I'm half asleep. He turns to me and says, "Babe, my insides feel like they're gentrifying." I ask what that even means. He responds by letting out a fart so long and complex it could have been an orchestral overture. I'm talking crescendo, movement changes, and a final brass section that set off the carbon monoxide detector. I left the room. The dog left the room. Even Alexa asked if we wanted to call emergency services. The next day, he started clutching his side like he was in a Shakespeare play and announced that he might have a twisted colon. Not a real diagnosis, just vibes. So he goes to the gastroenterologist, and after several tests, scans, and what I assume was a high-stakes round of name that smell, they confirm IBS, with lactose intolerance, and mild food sensitivity to everything he loves. Great. He comes home looking like he lost a custody battle with his own colon. But instead of being careful, he takes the new list of safe foods and decides that moderation is just a polite suggestion. He eats an entire tub of hummus, half a watermelon, and what I'm pretty sure was 3 servings of Brussels sprouts, all in one sitting, like a goat. That night, he transformed into a sentient whoopee cushion. I had to Google how to safely open windows during a storm just to survive. At one point, I honestly thought the walls were breathing. And then came the great yogurt incident. I told him kindly to avoid dairy. He nodded, smiled, said, "I got this." Then I found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., double-fisting Greek yogurt and shredded cheddar cheese like some kind of protein goblin. He looked me in the eyes and said, "The probiotics cancel the dairy." That's not how science works. That's not how anything works. Long story short, he's now grounded from unsupervised grocery shopping. I've removed all dairy from the house, and he's only allowed to have tofu if I'm watching. Also, the dog still won't sleep in our room. He has PTSD from last Thursday's cheddar hurricane. Marriage is beautiful, but sometimes it smells like death and poor decisions. I'm 22, just graduated from college a few months ago. While my classmates were polishing resumes and stressing over interviews, my parents sat me down and made it clear I wouldn't be job hunting. I'd be working for them. They run a massive waste management company like citywide contracts, fleet of trucks, recycling centers, the whole deal. It's their legacy, and they want me to take over someday. But they also made it clear I wouldn't be jumping into some cushy office role with a fancy title. If I was going to lead the company, I had to understand it from the ground up. Fair enough, I actually respected that. So I started at the very bottom. One day I was on a truck hauling trash bins in the rain. The next I was elbow deep in recyclables at the sorting center. I never told anyone who I was. I wore the same uniform, followed the same schedule, and showed up like every other new guy. I wanted real experience. No special treatment, no shortcuts. At first it was fine, humbling even. I started to respect the people who do this every day in ways I couldn't before. They're tough. They work hard. But after a while, the vibe started to shift. I was doing more and more of the grunt work while others kicked back. I was told to straighten out the bins, clean up after others, do the new guy stuff constantly. I didn't complain. I kept my head down. I figured it was part of paying dues. But then came the day that broke me. It was raining hard, and we were already short-staffed. I barely slept the night before, showed up exhausted, and got drenched within the first hour. My clothes were soaked. I was cold and running on fumes. Still, I pushed through most of the shift until one of the senior guys, Ron, decided he was done. He dumped the rest of his tasks on me and said, "You're the new guy, you handle it. I gotta leave early." I snapped. Politely, but firmly, I told him no, I wasn't doing his work. I was done letting people pile on just because they outranked me. He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then, with a smirk, he said, "Careful, management might not like it if I start talking about your attitude." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Then let's go to management right now." He blinked, didn't say another word, just walked off. That was the first time I've ever stood up for myself like that at work. I didn't play the "I'm the owner's son" card. I still haven't, but I'm starting to realize being the boss's kid doesn't mean I have to accept being walked over to prove I'm humble. I'm here to learn not to be everyone's personal doormat. My wife was left alone for 3 weeks, and I wish she just cheated instead. 3 weeks ago, I left for a work trip to Germany. My wife didn't want to come. "I'll hang back, water the plants, binge some Netflix," she said. She's 39. I thought, okay, she's a grown adult, she'll be fine. She was not fine. Day 2, she tries to make sourdough from scratch using a YouTube video and what she thought was yeast but turned out to be Epsom salt. The result, a rock-hard bread grenade that cracked our marble counter. She named it Crumbzilla and displayed it like a trophy. Then she decided to go all raw vegan for some reason and ordered 19 pounds of produce from a sketchy organic site. Half of it arrived moldy. The other half she juiced, exclusively, for a week, just juice, no solids. She got so dizzy she mistook the laundry hamper for the fridge and put all our frozen meals in it. They've since liquefied. To survive, she pivoted to eating Pop-Tarts and spoonfuls of peanut butter. Her justification: balance. Meanwhile, she stopped wearing actual clothes, just bathrobes, the same one every day. By week 2, it was 70% robe, 30% soup stains. The dog refused to cuddle her. Last night, I land, exhausted, and I'm greeted by a living room that smells like fermented ginger and regret. She runs to hug me, robe flapping open, holding a jar of pickles in one hand and a half-knitted scarf in the other. Apparently, she took up knitting to relax her stomach. This morning, I wake up to her whispering, "I think I'm a kombucha now," and burping in her sleep. The dog has moved his bed into the bathroom and won't make eye contact with either of us. I grabbed my keys and said I was going out for coffee. The dog followed. He needed air. I needed therapy. So here I am at a cafe with a silent, traumatized schnauzer, drinking espresso like it's holy water. The barista asked if I wanted oat milk. I said no, because my trauma already comes in liquid form. Hope your morning's less fermented. Edit to those raising eyebrows in the comments. Hey, fair enough. Humor's subjective. It's a story. No kombucha was harmed, no souls were actually fermented, and yes, the dog is emotionally recovering with the help of peanut butter and a weighted blanket. The relationship is fine. The only thing that truly suffered was the fish's dignity. This isn't a manifesto. It's satire. If you made it all the way to the part about vegan hot dog shakes and still thought this was a cry for help instead of a comedy horror spiral, then I truly admire your commitment to missing the point. To everyone else who laughed, side-eyed their own bathrobe, and gave their pets a reassuring pat, thank you. You're the reason the fish hasn't completely given up. Yet. I accidentally eavesdropped on a first date that felt like watching a dreamer trying to spark life into a brick wall. I was at a restaurant just outside Boston Mid-Range, nothing fancy, but nice enough for a date. I was early. My friend running late, so I had about 20 minutes of solo time at my table. Next to me, in the same booth but technically a separate table, sat a young couple who looked to be in their mid-20s. They arrived a minute after I did. Across from me, and to my left, sat a man, heavyset, pale, with a bright red beard and the posture of someone either very tired or permanently unimpressed. Across from him, beside me, sat a young woman with expressive eyes, neat makeup, and a polite energy that I could feel even from my seat. It was clearly a first date. She smiled, he grunted, she talked. He sipped a whiskey cocktail. She ordered a wine, asked for it to come with her meal, but they brought it early. She laughed and thanked the server anyway. And then, the conversation started. At first, it was small talk, the kind where one person tries to make it work, and the other seems to be calculating how long is polite before leaving. I started jotting things down, not with judgment, but curiosity. I do this sometimes when alone in public, like sketching, but with words. A habit from long subway rides and solo lunches. She admitted this was her first app date. He said he'd been on a lot. Silence. She asked him if he wanted to know anything about her. He responded, sure, like what? She tried again, asked about plumbing. He said he was a journeyman, but that there's no difference, really. She tried to relate. I went to school for 4 years for my job. I always admired people who just dove into work. He said he had a degree in communications. She blinked. Oh, that's cool, surprising but cool. He said nothing. She confessed she gets nervous on dates and talks too much. Invited him to jump in. He told her, you're fine. She asked if he'd always lived nearby. He said, whole life. She launched into a story she grew up on a houseboat. Her parents studied whales. Like George on Seinfeld, but real. She smiled, looking for a connection. He asked if you can eat whales. She paused. No. She asked if he was okay, offered to reschedule if it wasn't a good night. He said, you're fine. She laughed nervously, tried to bridge again. I actually studied physics, minored in music so I wouldn't forget piano. Took a year to just play, never looked back. He cut in. What kind of money you make doing that? She blinked. Sorry. He repeated the question. She dodged politely. It varies. He nodded. That's what I figured. She asked about Netflix. He studied the menu. She asked if anything looked good. He said, not really, might just ask for a regular burger. She apologized, said she should have checked if he liked seafood. He said, I do, it's just overpriced. She replied, oh, I wasn't expecting you to pay. He grinned, so you're paying, cool, maybe I'll get something else. She laughed, waiting for him to laugh back. He didn't. Oh, you were joking, right? He stared, what joke? She quietly decided to stick with the wine. He blamed the slow service. She asked about interests. He said, sports. She lit up. Oh, what do you play? He said he used to play in high school. Could have gone pro if I wanted. She asked, what else? She offered a fun one, desert island book choice. He frowned. Never been to the desert, I don't really travel. She paused, then said, you know, I'm actually feeling off. I think I might have to call it a night. He shrugged. Okay. She stood. I'll go settle this at the bar. He nodded. Okay. She looked down, hesitant, then said, well, have a good night. He waved her off. Yeah, you too, this was chill, I'll text you. She walked out. He stayed, ordered his burger, ate the whole thing. I watched this quiet unraveling of a one-sided effort, a hopeful human trying to connect with a brick wall of indifference, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because it was tragic or explosive, but because of how common it felt. It's like people aren't just bad at dating these days, they're bad at showing up. Like someone handed them a life, and they're just dragging it around, not even curious about the person across the table. Of course, not everyone is like this, but I'm seeing it more especially among young men. They seem so unbothered, unmotivated, and disinterested in the people they're with, like they're just fulfilling a social quota. Maybe it's burnout, maybe loneliness, or maybe some people are just not meant to date. Anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for listening. I just needed to get this one out of my head.